Welcome to Yeshiva Daf, Shir sponsor Luni Shpas, Am Yakoshon Lev Azitzchok. We're holding Basra Daf Kuf Yud Ches. We're starting Daf Kuf Yud Zayin base. In the bottom, there's a siman over here regarding the Gemara. So we're going to see siman is Lerav Tzlavchot v'Yosef Ichbo Menashe Choshev. Okay, so says the Gemara. So we just learned in the previous Daf that we have a machlikas. Is Eretz Yisrael split, divided, nichliko? To Yotze Mitzrayim, people can't have Mitzrayim, or is Nichliko L'Bar Eretz, the ones that go into Eretz Yisrael, and then as we learn, then it goes back to Yotze Mitzrayim, and it's be redivided. It says in Mormon Papa Labaya, Bishlo Mando Amar, Li Yotze Mitzrayim Mischal Karetz. If you hold that it was to give it to Yotze Mitzrayim, Hani Dichtiv L'Rav Tar Ben Nechalosoi, U'Lemeat Tamit Nechalosoi. So I understand that there's many and there's a few. You go based here to Mitzrayim. Say, I have two people coming out of Mitzrayim. One has 10 children, one has one child. The one who has 10 children gets the same piece like the one of the one child, because you go based on one's living in Mitzrayim, not based on the ones coming into Eretz Yisrael. Says the Gemara, and Daf Kuf Yud Ches Amud Aleph. Hello, Leman Dom L'Bay Haaretz. According to one that says the ones that goes into Eretz Yisrael, My L'Rav Tar B'Nechalosoi. What do you mean L'Rav Tar B'Nechalosoi? Because what does it mean? Meaning, we learn that everyone takes a piece in Eretz Yisrael. Then you go and you resplit it based on what the Gemara said before, because it says Lamatos. But they will take the full amount. Every single person going to Eretz Yisrael takes a chelik, and then he resplits it. That's why he's saying L'Rav Tarba L'Me'at Tamit. There's no Rav and no Me'at. They all take the same piece. That's what the Gemara asks. And as Rishman points out, later the Gemara is going to say that you split it based on Shvatim. So then it does make sense, because, in other words, Eretz Yisrael is split equally between the Shvatim. It doesn't matter if the Sheva was large or small. So then it makes sense. But according to what the Gemara understands right now, the Gemara says, why? You have Rav and Matt, they all take the same piece. Says the Gemara, and just to mention one line in the Rishbam. It says the Rishbam, maybe we talk about the Chazar, what we said before. If you look at the first wide line in the Rishbam, in the bottom. We learned for the pasuk before. The one piece that they're taking originally. So the Gemara says, it says the more kasha. According to Manda Omar, that it's Boy Oretz, not so clear what's Rav and Matt, and the more is going to address it a little later in these sugyas. So the Gemara probably asked about another question. This one, say, okay, talk about Yotze Mitzrayim. Haynu the Katzavchem Noit Tzavchot. So Noit Tzavchot saying, one second, our father was Yotze Mitzrayim, we want a piece of his land. Hello, Manda Omar, Boy Oretz, in my Tzavchot. Why? They're screaming, what do you want from your father? Your father is not one of Boy Yaretz. Eretz Yisrael is given only to Boy Yaretz. Says the Gemara, L'chazoro v'litoil b'nichsi chefer. No, I'm not talking about. I'm talking about chazara. Meaning they're going to take the land, give it back to Chefer, the grandfather, and then Chefer will split among his kids. So they want the piece from Chefer. That's the Gemara says according to Mandamar, the Boyeretz, the Boyer. That's what it is. If you look at the Rashbam and Chazor into Becheseva, the Mandi Isli Boyeretz, Isli Chazor. Shebachzim Labusim Kol Mashinotlo goes back to the parents. Chayzim Yoshua the same Kamishpat. That the Amr. Lami Gersh Shavim Tzom Mitor Mishpachto. Why is he blessed in his family? Shalis Koysemecha Ben Nichse Chevres Kenenu Eloi Elubin. Right. So you should go back to Chefer. And that's what it is. Now, here in the Ma'ara and the Gurah, we mentioned the previous daf, it has this question. So if you remember the previous daf, we learned that the Rashbam says that the land goes back one generation to the brothers. And then it's split between the brothers. So says the Ma'ara, why does the Gemara say you have to go to Chefer? Tzavchon himself. So, B'nai Tzavchon have cousins. These cousins go and they take the land in Eretz Yisrael. What happens then? It goes back one generation up to the brothers. And it's re-split between the brothers. Who are the brothers? Brothers of Tzavchon and Tzavchon himself. And then it should be now redistributed. So why do you have to go back to Chefer? So according to Rashi in the Chumash, it says it goes back to the grandfather. That's what it means, it goes back to the grandfather. But that's what the Gemara says over here. But if you're holding, like the Rashbam, Then you don't have to go to the grandfather. You just go to the brothers and then you redistribute between the brothers. So why does the Gemara say Pasha? Even though the Mindol Bayoretz goes to Chazara for Tzvavchat. That's what the Maharal asks. And that's the basis of his answer to come and say that the way it works is the Yetziv try and get a piece of the land, and Boyaretz are agents to get their chelik. So if you have a daughter, you don't have an agent. That's the Maharal that we discussed in Shor Machshava, because it's a fascinating Maharal, because the Maharsha over here brings the Maharal and argues with him. Usually we don't find the Maharsha bringing Maharal. It's probably the only place. So and they lived almost at the same time. So the Maharsha brings the Maharal and the Gurai and argues with him, and the Shor Machshava and the Daf were married in this Indian. But the question of the Maharal is a question to think about. L'chura, once it goes back to the brothers, it should be redivided to all the kids. So Bishma is saying goes based on Yosef Mitzrayim. Comes Shevet Yosef and they're complaining. What are they complaining? Dichtiv, Vayidabru b'nei Yosef. Yosef came and spoke, and they said the pasuk is, Madua natata lenachal goril echad vechevel echad ve'ani am rav. Baruch Hashem Yosef, it says to himself, I'm a big nation. Why am I getting the same thing everybody else? So Bnei Yosef coming complaining. I don't understand. You're giving to Yosef Mitzrayim, we were there wasn't many Yosef. But now, when we're coming to Eretz Yisrael, we're much more. We need much more space. If it goes to Boyoretz, my katzavchi, kulu shokol, everybody takes. We should fall in dav enough fish. This is what you're right. What they're complaining about is not the adults. They're complaining about the kids under the age of 20. Only 20-year-olds took a chelik in Eretz Yisrael. So the shaila is that the adults that are above 20, you give it to them. But what about the youngsters? We have many, many kids under the age of 20. What about them? That's why they're complaining. The Maharal has a question over here. He says, it's also the Maharal in the Gurayah, the previous piece, the Maharsha addresses this as well. So the Maharal, a simple question. He said, why do you have to get the tefillin under 20, even above 20? The only time you take a chelik in Eretz Yisrael is only if you have a father who came out of Mitzrayim. But if a person is a Yosem, he's an orphan, he doesn't have a father who came out of Mitzrayim, but he's above 20, he won't take a chelik in Eretz Yisrael, he has no one to give it back to. So it's more than tefillin. You have a complaint of many, many people above the age of 20, they don't have fathers that came out of Mitzrayim. It's a question of the Maharal. Maharal says, no. The ones that go into Eretz Yisrael, everyone takes a chelik. If you have a previous generation, you go back a generation and resplit it. If you don't have a previous generation, you keep it. The Maharal understands if you don't have a previous generation, you don't take L'boy Haaretz. Says the Gemara, Omer Abai, Shma mino lo evachad lo shokel. Chor for her, and yet Ham Yisrael. Everybody got a piece of land. If there was somebody that didn't get, they should have complained. As we just saw people complaining, I was going to explain in a moment. Why don't see anybody complaining? Maybe many people complained. You can assume that many Yidden coming in there to Israel, they're probably those are complainers. But only the ones who were successful, like Bnei Tzvavcha, that complained and said, we want a piece of land, they were successful in the complaint, they're the ones who are written. The ones who are not, they're not. So the Gemara, Bnei Yosef, the Tzavcha v'lo v'kasvinu kro. We have Bnei Yosef. Yosef, they came and complained, nothing happened. It didn't help the fact they complained. So the Gemara also made Tzatoiva Kamash Balan. There was something else. The reason the Torah wrote it, to teach us an Tzatoiva. Right, the Rishbam says, "B'shishilamedi manu mimash yeshivalim Yeshua." The mibari leinish lehatpid absolutely is the remain abisha. Lehakik of the korlet tzavcha b'nei Yosef. It was written there to teach us a lesson. There was many complainers, says the Gemara, but only the successful ones were written. Or Bnei Yosef said that we have something else to learn from there. What do you have to learn? Says the Gemara, the mibari leinish is the remain abisha. Person has to be careful of ma'ayin hara. Hayin the korban Yeshua dichtiv v'yomer lehem Yeshua imam rav atah. If there's many people, go to the forest. What does it mean go to the forest? As the Rashbam explains, don't tell me that don't tell me that he said go conquer more land. Every Yeshiva got his own chelik. He's giving him just an idea to go and open an area in the forest. He's giving them a concept to go and hide themselves in the forest. Right? Amalu leichu and go hide in the forest. You won't have Ayin Hara. That's what it is. It says the Gemara in the Kuf Yechezron base. We're not worried about Ein Hara because we're Zer of Yosef, and by Yosef there's no Ein Hara. Tichtiv ben Paras Yosef ben Paras Alei Ein. This is the Parshas Vayechi. What's ben Paras Alei Ein? You go above the eye. The eye doesn't control you. Says Dogim Kervaretz. The water is covering them and the eye cannot control them. The eye doesn't control them. Here the Kohanim bring, what do you mean? Fish in the sea, you can't see. Many times you can look at the sea, if there's clear water, you can see the fish. So the Kohanim bring, what it means is that the eye has a koyach, as the Arizal brings, the eye can take out, there's like a laser beam coming out of the eye that could cause damage. The fish in the water, the laser beam doesn't have to go to them because they're covered with water. Even though the water is you can see through the water, but still there's a covering through the water. So you see from here, so that's the idea that in Hara, the eye does not prigi up him. That's special by Yosef. Because Hashem will talk about the Shor Machshav a little bit more, but this Indian of Ein Hara by Yosef, if it's by Yosef only, by Am Yisrael, do we have such a thing or not? So the Meraglim, Yeshua, we call them the Meraglim, Yeshua and Kalev took their chelik. We know that. They lived from these people. They lived, well, everybody else died. We have a fair pasuk that says that they are the ones that remained. You have to tell me which means they lived their chelik. They inherited the chelik of the Meraglim. And the Rashbam says over here, this goes according to one Homer Lebar Oretz. So the Meraglim was supposed to get it because they went out of Mitzrayim. And we say no, that chelik they were supposed to get goes to Yeshua and Kalev. If you hold the boy or this Chak Haaretz, then you don't say such a thing because anyway they're not supposed to get it. They didn't go into Eretz Yisrael. Misloim had the skorich le'adam chelik b'haaretz. Misloim had the skorich did not have chelik in Eretz Yisrael. It's more about Tani Meraglim, Misloim. They had the skorich. Yeshua and Kalev not to chelkom. Here, Masha, they all three took Yeshua and Kalev took their chelik. Like Kasha, Marmakish Misloim the Meraglim. Marlomakish Misloim the Meraglim. So Marmakish the Misloim to the Meraglim that they Yeshua took the chelik. Yeshua and Kalev. Some don't. Tanya Avinu Meis Omeidor. That's the Nois Slovchot speak about their father. So their father died in the Midbar is at Slovchot. As we'll see, that's a Mikoishish. He was not part of the Eido, so Eido had his Meraglim. Hani Adim El Hashem, Eido Misloinim, Be'ad Eskoyer, Be'ad Eskoyer, Kamashmar. We'll see in a moment what that means. Ma Makish Misloinim Meraglim, Marlo Makish Misloinim Meraglim. What is Makish? Says that they're written in the same pasuk. Some does the Hekesh, some doesn't do the Hekesh. If you do the Hekesh, you learn the same way that Yeshua and Kalev take the Meraglim's chelik, the Torah goes to Misloim chelik, and if the one who doesn't do the Hekesh doesn't say that. The one understands what is the Misloim? The Misloim are the ones that are complaining Am Yisrael. The entire Am Yisrael complained. It was basically everybody. So you want to take the chelik of everyone in Am Yisrael? Says the Gemara. Talk about the people in Adas Korach that complained, which are the 250 people, not the entire Am Yisrael. Says the Gemara, you say that it was the Yeretz Mitzrayim. It says that the chelik of Menashe was divided into 10. Right? In other words, the pasuk says, we're talking about here the children that of Chefer. As the Rashbam says, we're talking about the list that was mentioned there before. Who is it? It's like the word says, Shita, the Shita Batei Ovis. There's 6 Batei Ovis that we have. And that is the 6 brothers of Slavchat. Sorry, I said not Slavchat. we're talking about the Bnei Menashe. So what are the Rishban brings over here? Vayulu Bnei Menashe Nisoy Mishpochas Livnei Eviezer, Livnei Chelek, Livnei Astriel, Livnei Shechem, Livnei Chefer, Ulivnei Shmido. El Bnei Menashe Bnei Yisrael Schor Mishpochos. Right? So they have six divisions of the Botiav of Menashe. The Arbot you do, and in addition was 4 for Bnei Tzavchot. 3 that we mentioned in the Mishnah, which they took the chelik of their father, the chelik of the father deserves from the grandfather, and the chelik b'chayro. And the 4th one, we'll see in a moment what it is. Ha'asor. L'mando l'boy haaretz, tamni over the good boy haaretz, they don't get for tzavchot. And they don't get for, they get only from chefer. And the chefer gets back the land, and he divides between these kids, and tzavchot gets double because he's a b'chor. So it should be only 2, not 4. The havushito the shita b'tei office. For trade you do, it's a tamnu the havush should be only 8. Shita b'tei office. For trade you do 6 of the 6 b'tei office, and 2 of them. Hatamnu. So 1 second. So when you go bathe in Ois Mitzrayim, Tetav was only 9. How do you get to 10? Elo ma'isachim. What are you going to tell me? There was a brother who died, and as Rosh explains to us the sugya, there was one brother that died, and his chelik was in schalak between Slavchot and his brothers. There's no chiddush. That's what he mentioned in the Mishnah. As Rosh goes on to explain, in the Mishnah wanted to say that Slavchot gets it. That's the Yotzei Mitzrayim. And we wanted to say that he gets a chelik of chefer, and we wanted to say that he gets a b'chor. All 3 he's able to get. So, and I mean, the Bnei Slavchot think that's these chalakim. But the fact that the brother dies is you split between all the brothers, that's not a chiddush, and we didn't mention it. It says, Achinami, you have to say, according to the boy Haaretz, Ischal Haaretz, they got another 2 chalakim because they got it from the brothers. There was 2 brothers that died and split it. The Tanya is to tell them, you give them, what are you giving them? So Nechalas Avim, their father's chilek. But Torah Avim, obviously the boy, we're talking about the man Domar, Yotzei Mitzrayim is Chak Haaretz. But Torah Avim among the brothers, so Nachas Avi Avim. That's the nachlo of the grandfather that all the brothers divide. Ve'evart is Nachas Avim lehem, you're giving their nacholo, so chilek b'chayro. They took also their uncles. Sheman is 10, a double. What do you learn that from? There's another nachlo. Questions, why you need both psukim? Why can you learn from one both? Okay. Okay, so the Gemara mentioned this is the 10. And when the Ara over here comes out, it's not the same division. But the 6 big families of Shem Menashe. One of them is Chefer. When we speak about Bnei Tzavchot, we talk about a very small portion. They're taking part of the Chilek of Chefer, part of Tzavchot is very small. But we want, because we said a Chilek of Tzavchot, so we mentioned it, even though it's not the same size. What is the pasuk talking about? Itfal kachoshiv tuvav. When the Torah says there's 10 families, 10 batiyav, there's 10. You're talking about all the kids. It's much more. If batiyav is kachoshiv shitav, you're talking about the families, only 6. This is basically the question we just mentioned. If you're talking about the big ones, you're talking about the big divisions, there's 6 families. You're talking about all the kids, there's much more. So why do I have over here, what do I have? I have here 6 plus the 4 of Tzavchot, which is, do you count that generation or not? Says we do mention what you have. And this is what we just mentioned before. The reason we mentioned Tzavchot, even though there's no, it's like the second generation. We didn't mention the second generation. But we have here a big chiddush. We want to say that the daughters of Tzavchot took his chilek, we already learned, and also the chilek b'chayra, even though it's only roy, he didn't get it yet. So as we mentioned in the Mishnah, even though he didn't get it, but Eretz Yisrael muhzek as if he did get it. And that's the big chiddush, the chilek b'chayra. You look at Eretz Yisrael as if it's already muhzekes b'yideim by the people that's supposed to get it. Just end here, a few more lines. The kids took, the kids of the Meraglim, kids of the Misloinim, they didn't get it because of their father. Their father lost their chilek. They got it from the grandfather. Says the Gemara, so you get b'schus of Yavim or b'schus of Yim or same, either the paternal grandfather or the maternal grandfather. V'hatanya b'schus atzmon says that they got their own chilek based on their own. Leikash How come I don't Eretz Mitzrayim? How come I don't the Bayaretz? If the Eretz Yisrael was given to Bayaretz, so they got a chelik. If the Eretz Mitzrayim was not given to wasn't given to Bayaretz, only thing they could have get is the grandfather. If you by same the Bayaretz, both talk about Bayaretz. Yeah, Bayaretz gets a chelik. They have to be 20 years old. So you're saying over here, there's one verse that says they just got the grandfather's chelik, and there's a verse that says that they got their own chelik. So if they get their own chelik, it means they were 20 years old. If they're getting the grandfather's chelik, they were less than 20 years old. If they're less than 20 years old, how do they get the grandfather's chelik? I mean, it goes to Bayaretz. So as Rashbam explains, so he says like this. Look at the Rashbam. Chiefs, a few lines here from the top. Finish with failing, they're not they're not 20 years old. They don't get from the Mitzrayim. I was supposed to be a BM, I know a voice of Raglim shot to Mitzrayim. The conduct breast kept Shimon ben Lazar committed an oath. So why do they get to the grandfather? Because the goal of Shimon and Lazar that holds what? The Eretz Yisrael was given to both Yetzi Mitzrayim and Bayaretz. He is the Tartan. So he'll be named Yerush Moisav Kibnot Tovcha Sheyosh V'nichsi Chefer Zikram. The Havagav the Chashivik could fall in Dharma, even though they're youngsters. That's Rashbam Shita. Even though when they're going to Eretz Yisrael, they're less than 20, they still get a chelik based on their grandfather. Hi, what about Chazar? Chazar Leikalamim, go back. The Shimon Lazar lays the Chazar. The Vechetesi naturally court their very Lugufayim. If feeling to Tzulema, the Achsifa Lav Shimon, you want to be Zam Shimon, that's two ways to explain it. How do they give for the grandfather? One way is you go like Shimon and Lazar, that the grandfather has a chelik. Or you go based on Chazar. This generation give it back to the grandfather. The Xer is only for anybody under 20. It goes back to the grandfather. They give it to all the generations. That's how you do it. And that's how it goes. Now, so you can do Chazar, you can go based on Shimon and Lazar. Now the Rashbam goes on and says, you're not talking about the children of Mishlei. You're talking about the grandchildren of Mishlei. Why is that so? Look a few lines down the Rashbam. Why? We know that. Not really the grandfather, we talk about the great grandfather. Why? He can't say his name Mishlei. They're not 20 years old. The Kaimel Moshe ben Samirag in year number 2. Time said the Oilam Achar Bia Samirag Tabuyos Shakorach Uboy Bayom Yisabrom Mishlei. The Mishlei happened that same day, immediately after of Koyah, which was right after the Miraglim. And so Shibneim Kishibol Arat Abnei Chesham. That's the second year. When he went there to Saul, they were 38. Sheken only saw in Barach. So, in other words, this Torah also addresses it. If you want to tell me these kids are under the age of 20, and that's why they don't get a chilek in Eretz Yisrael, how can it be under the age of 20? Their fathers died 38 years ago, so they're at least 38. Says the Rashbam talking about the grandsons. The grandchildren, we're not talking about the sons, we're talking about the grandsons, and that's what we're talking about. Okay, we'll stop over here, because I should continue from the 2 dots in the next daf.